In this clip, we'll look at the physical aspects of the primary RAM used for working memory in a computer. Specifically, we'll explore the typical structure of a RAM module, namely modules and the slots that they fit into, and the sizes or form factors that RAM typically comes in, namely DIMM and SO-DIMM, acronyms which we'll explain in a few moments. Looking at a garden variety RAM module like the one at left reveals that RAM uses a small printed circuit board, or PCB, which hosts a collection of semiconductor memory chips that a machine has soldered onto the board, meaning that we can't remove and replace a single RAM chip on a module as we could, for example, in that 16 megabyte mini computer board from the 1980s that I showed you earlier. We can see a row of gold-plated contacts at the bottom of the RAM module. Actually, there's another row on the back side of the printed circuit board too. And this bottom edge of the card usually has a notch in it, typically off-center, which helps us fit the RAM module correctly onto the motherboard and also helps ensure that we're using the correct generation of RAM. More on that in a moment. Now, this card edge connector fits into corresponding slots on the motherboard. Today's standard RAM slots have clips that snap onto each end of the RAM module so that the module doesn't get dislodged if somebody drops their laptop. Now, for desktops, the first form factor we'll discuss is DIMM, which stands for Dual Inline Memory Module. This is the typical size and shape for desktop and tower computers. It's 5 1/4 inches long and has rows of contacts both in front and in back, hence the word dual in the acronym name. The number of pins, or contacts, will vary depending on which generation of DIMM we're looking at. In modern computers, 240 and 288 pins are the most common, but older generations have different numbers of pins. This is one of the specs we have to pay attention to when buying more RAM for a computer. Any given motherboard will only work with one particular pin layout. Now, the other form factor in common use is the SO-DIMM, or Small Outline Dual Inline Memory Module, which, as you might guess from the word small in the acronym, is the typical size and shape used in laptops, but which we might also see in small PCs and other devices, such as routers, TV set-top boxes, and so forth. The SO-DIMM is about half the size of a DIMM. Again, it has 2 rows of gold-plated contacts, and there are different variations on the theme, with 260 and 262 pins being common layouts nowadays. So how do we get to the RAM inside of a computer? Well, with this 2025 HP EliteBook, our first step is to remove the captive screws securing the base plate to the laptop body, after which we can lift the base plate off, and now we have access to the motherboard and the memory module, which is here underneath a thin metal plate which provides both physical and electromagnetic shielding. Before we can remove the plate, we have to peel back some tape, which is a rather inelegant way of holding laptop components in place if you ask me, but nobody did. Then with the tape peeled back, we can gently pull the shield away from the tiny clips on the motherboard. And now we can see the RAM slots, one occupied on the left and one empty on the right. At this point, the removal method involves pulling the clips on the sides of the RAM module away from the module, and then we tilt the module up and pull it gently out of the connector. Now, in some cases, we can add RAM with a brand new module if the computer has 2 RAM slots but only one is occupied. We may not get the best performance if we have 2 modules of different capacities, but that depends on the make and model of the laptop or desktop. Alternatively, if the computer only has 1 slot, or if it has 2 but both are filled, then we'll have to remove one or both of the lower capacity modules and replace them with higher capacity ones. We might save the old modules into an anti-static bag and keep them around for emergencies.